my name's Teresa and this is my channel, Homestead Life. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I am going to be making a bunch of things with carrots. I went to one of my favorite places, which is Costco Business Center, and they had an amazing deal on 25 pounds of carrots. So I got 25 pounds of carrots for under $10. And I figured this would be the perfect time to make some carrot cake, a carrot loaf, and to also can some more carrots. We're gonna start off today by getting these prepped. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and process the rest of our carrots. And the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna do them on low. Let's see. I'm gonna check to see if that's thick enough or if they are too thin. And they look a little thin, so I'm gonna go and move them up to a 4. And this is just all personal preference. Now, as you can see, that made fast work of carrot peels, okay? And I am just gonna continue until all of these are peeled up. Empty, and back together. See a whole nother bowl of carrots. Now I can use these carrots for a multitude of things. I can can them up for cooked carrots in soups or stews or things of that nature, or I can take these nice pieces and put some aside for some of my stir fries. So I'm going to do a little bit of both. Oops, kind of need the slicing attachment in there in order to get these done. Here we go again. Perfectionist. I don't care if my carrots look like this or if they look like this, right? They're both going to work perfect in whatever application I'm using them for. With stir fries, I kind of like them when they're sideways. I guess I'm gonna grab a couple more so I don't have the big reach. And yes, you'll make a mess on your counter. Okay, got a little full with that, and I knew I did. Almost done with carrots. I have a bit more. It's amazing how many carrots 25 pounds is. And these carrots are big, healthy, large carrots. This big bowl out of the way. Now I've had some of these big bowls for years. We now have all of our carrots prepped. So, I didn't want all of these teeny tiny pieces, but it's okay. Some of these pieces I'm going to end up giving to my dogs as a treat, so I'm going to just put these aside. Let's clean this up, and then we will get to making our 2 different carrot cakes. All right, so I'm going to start with these because I don't want them to dry out. And I am going to get these ready to pressure can. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in, carrots in up to 1 inch headspace, which is right at this little lip here. And we're going to do them, about to 1 inch headspace, maybe a little less, because we're going to end up adding some hot water. I do have my kettle on the stove right now. I'm going to look at any of these that look a little odd and take them out. And I'm using the larger of the canning jars just because I've noticed that I'm grabbing 2 at a time whenever I'm using carrots for anything at all. And it's very rare that I am just grabbing the smaller. So the pints versus the quarts, you're always back and forth finding out how you use things, right? So, oops, I'm throwing carrots all over the place. Good thing I cleaned the counter, right? I always work with a clean surface. I have both my canners out, my pressure canners, and ready to go. I've already taken them through what I call the safety check or pre-flight type check. I'm making sure the seals look good. I'm making sure that the vents are not obstructed, that everything looks to be in proper working order so that we don't have any issues while canning. Alright. And I just grabbed 1 case of the jars because I wanted to see how many I would have left in this wonderful bowl after I did this, because I do go through a lot of carrots because I make a lot of chicken noodle soup, and I put carrots in that. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough for that, but that I could still have some for stir fry. And for stir fry, I'm not going to actually can that. I'm going to put those in some freezer bags and put those in the freezer. Now, I do have the airtight freezer seal, like the old-fashioned seal of meal kind of thing. I think mine's a Food Saver. But I'm gonna use it faster than it makes sense to actually seal it airtight. If I was for some reason going to be making stuff for the future, like further down the road, then I would probably use the air sealer and kind of make sure that they would last a little bit longer, not my freezer burn. But I'm not going to be doing that. We're doing a lot of stir fries recently and quick, easy, throw together type meals. I bought myself a wok. I haven't had one in, 10, 15 years. About 10 years now, since I moved from Colorado. And so we got another one. We've been kind of doing a lot of those lately, so I want to make sure I have carrots prepped for that. I'll just make my life a little bit easier. A lot of times we're kind of on the go, so it's nice to be able to throw a quick home cooked meal together and have the ingredients fresh in the house ready to go, rather than having to spend the time chopping things up and prep work. So if I'm on the go and I come home and decide we want to stir fry, I can throw it together really quick. Stir fry is super easy. sauce and kind of toss it all in there, whatever kind of meat. Last night we did beef and broccoli. We did some chicken and vegetables the other day. So it's just nice to have this prepped on hand. Okay. In fact, I was thinking about making some stir-fry kits that I would have all together so that all I have to do is just grab and go. So that's something I've been kind of toying with as well. And I might actually do that with some of these carrots. But I'm not sure. It depends on how industrious I feel today. Okay. So grabbing my towel to wipe my hands off, and I don't worry too much about the little pieces of carrot that will eventually get eaten by the dogs who are napping at the moment. And we're going to go ahead and grab the tea kettle off of the stove, and I'm just going to put it over here. We're going to fill up each one of these until 1 inch headspace. And then we will debubble them. Now, if you don't know what debubbling is, it's kind of moving everything around, making sure any air pockets are out of the carrots or whatever you're canning. And as you do that, you'll find that sometimes things settle in such a way that you're going to add more liquid or maybe more of whatever it is that you're canning. Oops. And so while I'm doing these, I will get some more water on the stove. I keep talking about one of these days getting a electric tea kettle, but I have this one and have had it for a long time and really enjoy it. It heats up pretty quickly, so I don't have to worry too much about it. Let me grab my debubbler. Now you can use one of these debubbler tools. It also has a stair step on it, which helps you to know how much headspace you're using. And so if you look here, 1 inch headspace is this very bottom, so you can double check your headspace if you're unsure. Once you've been canning for a while, you'll be able to tell, or it'll be easier for you to tell just by eyeballing it. But you're just gonna kind of move things around, let them settle. You can put some salt in here, and a lot of people do use salt when canning. I don't, and here's why. It's not required. It's not something that the USDA regulations say is a must. And I don't know what the use for these carrots are gonna be. If I am using it in a soup, I may not want added salt. So I wanna make sure whatever I'm gonna use this for, I'm not going to have to counteract any kind of flavors or seasonings, right? And salt will change the way some things taste. So for the carrots, I don't put salt in them. I also do some carrots that are candied carrots. I'm not doing that today because I still have a decent amount of those. As you can see, we have a little bit of room in here, so I might add a few more carrots just to kind of bring it up to where I want it to be. And not a lot, but just a few. And keeping within that 1 inch headspace rule. So we don't want anything that's going to change that. And if you've accidentally gotten too much in there, you just take some stuff out. So it's nothing to be too concerned about if you don't have enough, or if you have too much, you can just, it's not like an exact science until you're ready to actually put the lid on. Now, these are looking good. I'm gonna take a paper towel, and this is just some white vinegar, white distilled vinegar, and I'm gonna just dip it in there and get a little bit on the paper towel, and I'm going to go around the lip of the jars. Now, when I wash these jars or open these jars, before I put them back in my container for storage, I make sure that there's no nicks or cracks. And I just double check them before I do a canning project as well. But what I'm doing right now is I am taking off any residue, anything that might prohibit a seal. Once I've done that, I'm going to place a brand new lid on the jar. And I am going to just fingertip tight. That's a rule, fingertip tight. So when I'm talking fingertip tight, just like that. I could actually wrench it more, but no, you want it fingertip tight. The reason for that is part of the sealing process is actually letting air out, and if it's too tight, it can't do that. So you're gonna have failed seals. At least that's what my great grandmother always told me. So again, fingertip tight, don't wrench it down, fingertip tight. And it's a natural instinct to really kind of crank it, so you have to think about it. And sometimes I'm over the top and I'll do this and then I'll undo it and I'll do it again just to make sure that I didn't go overboard with my fingertip tight. And I see a lot of people who, and I'm looking at some of these, I'm just picky. They've been cleaned, see, like I just did it myself. While I'm not paying attention, I went a little too tight. So there we have 4 jars. And we are going to do 4 more. Actually, I'm going to try to do 6 this time around. So let's see if I can put some more carrots in here. And it's just kind of an assembly line process. I don't want to push them too deep in there, but the water will realign them. I can hear that my water is about ready. So, okay. And here we go again. And this is called a raw pack method because I'm putting the carrots in raw. You can cook your carrots and then actually bring them in to the jars warm and do a hot pack method. I prefer this way so your carrots don't get too mushy. I think if you do it the other way, you can have a tendency for them to get a little too mushy, especially if you're gonna put them in something like a soup or a stew later. If you were gonna just eat them, like heat them up and just eat them as is, it might not be too terribly bad. Okay, I'm out of water. So, and back on high. So while it's doing that, it doesn't take very long to fill up. I'm gonna go ahead and start debubbling what I have here and see if I can add a little bit more. This one I think I can. So a little bit more. That would be good. Let's get this one. All around. That one's looking pretty good by itself. Some more in that one. This one obviously needs more water, which will be about ready in a minute. So we'll put these to the side, and again, I'm going to wipe these down. Tip tight. I know I say it a lot, but it's because I see so many people doing it wrong. And like even when I've taught my daughters. So remember, listen to the fingertip thing. Don't go overboard. Some of these. There we go. Okay, we got 2 more there. All right, and the water is ready. Which is what's cool, it's pretty quick. And I could always boil a very large pot of water too. But I didn't want to get another pot out just to do that, because then I just have to remove that from the stove for my canners. Now if I had a much bigger stove, then I would probably do that. Fingertip tight. Fingertip tight. I got 2 more that I, for some reason, did not see over there. Bubble. Whenever you're doing any kind of canning, it is just literally like an assembly line. Lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. And you're just continually doing that over and over again. You kind of get into a rhythm, and it's the same with when the canner's going. You're going to hear it, and you're going to get into rhythm with knowing when the canner's doing something it shouldn't. Okay, this one, we're still going half-inch headspace. There we go. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna head over to the cooktop and get these in the canner. On the cooktop here, I have both my canners, and they have about 2 quarts of water in each. I'm gonna go ahead and put a splash of distilled white vinegar in each one because we have hard water here. If you don't have hard water, you don't really need to do that. And all that's doing is making sure that there's not a film on the outside of your jars after you've canned them. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these turned on, and I'm going to do kind of a medium-high heat. I found that I can do both of these on about a medium-high. I already put warm water in when I put the water in, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer all of our container or jars into this so that they can stay all nice and warm, and then I'll slowly bring them up to temperature. We have both the pots of water here boiling in the canners, so we're going to go ahead and secure the lids on each. And you're going to always want to look for the arrows to line those up. Okay. Now I'm gonna let these continue to boil, and the reason that I brought that up to a boil was just because I did use the hot water, but the water that was in here was just lukewarm, so I wanted to get them all up to the same temperature before I put the lids on. Now we're gonna bring this to the point where we have steam coming out here, and we'll do that for 10 minutes. That's called venting. I'll bring you back once we have steam coming out. Okay, if you can see, we have a steady stream of steam on each one of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 10 minutes so that we can vent this for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes is up, I'll bring you back and we will put the regulators on top. All right, here we have 10-minute timer has gone off, and we're going to put our regulators on the top. And we are going to wait until they pop up just like this. And hopefully within the next minute or so, they're gonna start to gently rock. That's when we know that we are under pressure, and we'll start our actual timer for the processing time. For carrots, we are gonna be processing for my altitude 30 minutes. So as soon as they start to gently rock, that is when we will start that time. I don't know if you can see, this one's already starting to move just a little bit. The other one is not. And I have that up on high for both of them. So it's just a waiting game. I'll bring you back once they start their rocking so you can see what that motion looks like. Okay, as you notice, they are gently rocking. This is what we want to keep, and we want to make sure it stays that way the entire 30 minutes that we're processing. If you're newer to canning, you might want to keep an eye on it. I actually can hear the rocking, and so I can go about other things in the kitchen, but I'll keep an ear open for this too. So let's go ahead and set the timer for 30 minutes, and then I will bring you back once that 30 minutes has elapsed and show you the next step. So we have our timer that's went off, so we're gonna turn off both of these burners. And the next step is another hurry up and wait kind of thing. So we're not going to lift our regulators off at all. We're gonna go ahead and let this sit until our little buttons fall down. That will indicate that there's no longer pressure in the canners, and that it is then safe for us to try to open the actual canning lids, the lids of the canner. So up until that point, we're just gonna let it sit and cool down. It can take anywhere from, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, all depends on how warm it is in the kitchen and the pressure that you have built up in here. So I'll bring you back once these have dropped. Now these have cooled down, both of our buttons have popped. It's still warm to the touch, so you're gonna wanna be careful, but let's remove the regulators. We're gonna take our first lid off and open it away, just in case there's some steam. And we'll do that with our next one as well. It's been a little while, so I let this kind of cool while I did a couple of other things. So we're looking good here. We're gonna go ahead and take these out and put them over on, I have a little padded, kind of like kitchen sink mat for like when you do dishes. I'm gonna go ahead and put those out over here. While we have those jars coming up to temperature over there on the stove, I'm gonna go ahead and get some of these carrots put into some Ziploc containers and freezer containers, so that way we can kind of see what we're working with, and I can have this as some items for stir fry. Now, one thing to note when you're working with something like carrots is that your hands are going to turn a lovely color, and you're going to have to wash your hands after this is all said and done. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and zip these. Now, like I said, I'm not going to put this in an airtight type of container, just because it's not gonna last that long. We're gonna go through these pretty quickly. And I wanted to see how many I had left after I got some of this together for stir fries to see if I want to put any more in jars. I don't think I'm going to need to, but you never know. Now there's other things that you can do with carrots. Obviously you can make carrot soup. You can shred a whole bunch of this up as well and keep it shredded and frozen if that's something that you would desire. I don't like doing that because when you get like shredded carrots at the store, for instance, they're kind of dry. And I'm not a big one for having dry carrots. And I'm not gonna mind these too awful much because I'm gonna be using them in stir fries. And with the stir fries, I'm gonna be adding sauce. So I'm gonna want it to soak up some of the sauce. So, not too concerned with these. Okay, I have grabbed 6. I don't think I'm gonna need 6 containers. It's gonna be perfect. I'm making a mess, I know. If the dogs were out of their crates, they'd be right at my feet, waiting to get goodies. It looks like this is gonna be it, which is pretty good. I don't know if I'm gonna use a whole one of these in a stir fry or a half one. It's gonna depend on what I'm making, but this will be a nice convenience item to have and not have to take the time after a long day and have to actually chop something up. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this up, or I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up. And I will be back as soon as that's up to temperature and show you what we do next. Now, if you notice, there's still some bubbling going on inside here, and that's what we want. We're gonna let these sit for a while. Don't put them too awful close together, but let these sit for a while and completely and totally cool. And then that's when we'll see what's sealed and what, if any, failures to the seals we have. These are all perfectly cooked now. You can use them in any recipe. You can still season them as well. And the reason you don't want them too close is because you want them to be able to have room to cool down. This is another one that's a good example of all the bubbling that's happening still. All right, now I'm gonna let these cool down for 6 to 8 hours or overnight. I'm gonna go ahead and empty out our canners because I'm no longer gonna be doing any canning today, and get everything cleaned up. And I will bring you back once these are totally done and I'm about ready to take the rings off. Okay, it's the next day. I've let this cool for definitely over 24 hours. We are on a Sunday, so I went and did some things this morning with family, and I am back to open these jars. What we're gonna do is take the lids off and see what we have sealed. And you can also press down and see if anything pops up. And none of these pop up except for this one. So this one is a failed seal, which is fine because we'll actually use that in something I'm making tomorrow, so it's not a big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and open all of these. I will wash these off and then put these on my pantry shelf. Every one of these has sealed, except for that one. And being that I don't have super expensive, super fancy lids, I'm not too concerned with that. Now I'm gonna want to actually clean these up. If you see here, we have some dirt around, not dirt, but we have sticky stuff from the siphoning, and we're gonna wanna go ahead and wash that off. I use distilled vinegar on a cloth to do that as well, and I'll show you when I do that. And these, another thing that I do that's a little trick, I feel much more comfortable about it when I'm doing it with the smaller jars, is holding on to the lid, because if you're holding on to this little lid here and it's able to hold the weight like that, you know you have a really good strong seal. Sometimes you have a false seal and those will pop later, and then you'll have a surprise when you open it up and it won't be edible. There we have that. Let me grab a cloth and wash these up. I usually have multiple things of vinegar around when it's canning season. And I use vinegar for a lot of things other than canning as well, such as cleaning. So we're just gonna clean these up really good and then put them on the pantry shelf. Thank you for joining me today and on this adventure of canning, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I hope you watch some of my other videos. Thanks and have a great day.